Next, going to be switching out the master cylinder push rod. The one on the S2000 is too short to reach the pedal, and then I got one out of a Prelude at the junkyard, and I'm just going to go ahead and get this this clip out and then just switch them out. Alright, so here's the push rod with the clip still on there. This is the other push rod. See the length difference? Got that in there. Go ahead and put the dust boot on, and this is how it's going to be inside the car. Got the master cylinder, got the spacer from Downstar, and then got the firewall seal. Use a die on the push rod because the push rod is a little bit too long, so normally it would be like right there, but I did extra threads on it so I could go ahead and bring it back some more, and so it'll go on. I'm just going to cut a little bit off of the bolt right here. I don't know if you could see. I'm just going to cut a little bit, maybe it's just a 1/4 inch off, just so it doesn't hit the pedal. Here's the piece I cut off. Like I said, it's just a little tiny bit, 1/4 inch. The master cylinder can be installed without the spacer, but it will sit closer to the firewall, so it kind of makes it a little difficult to open and close, but it's not that hard. I purchased the master cylinder, the spacer, and the clutch line from Y-Wire as a package, so that's the reason why I'm going ahead and use the spacer. You know, why not? I plan on making more threads on my other Prelude. If you saw that video, I used Loctite and got rid of the locking nut, but you know, I'm going to go ahead and fix it and just go ahead and make new threads on it just so I have the locking nut on there. Alright, so quick overview of the setup. S2000 master cylinder, got the Downstar spacer, the Honda OEM firewall seal. For the clutch pedal on the master cylinder, how to go ahead and get a Prelude push rod for the master cylinder. Went ahead and put more threads on the push rod and shortened the push rod a little bit to make fit on the pedal. For the firewall, went ahead and had to drill the 2 holes for the bolts on the master cylinder and the main hole for the master cylinder bore. Went ahead and put 4 washers between the firewall and the clutch pedal to give it strength. And on the top of the clutch pedal, went ahead and drilled a hole through the top part of the firewall where the wipers are. Went ahead and put that bolt in for reinforcement. Wired up the neutral safety switch, wired up the cruise control, set the pedal to make sure it's not riding, pushing in the master cylinder, and adjusted all the switches. Removed and replaced the brake pedal as well for the standard one. Simple remove and replace. And also on the switch for the brakes, went ahead and adjusted that. There's a little bit of space in between the pedal itself. The button is not all the way pushing on it to make sure I'm not riding on the brakes. And I went ahead and installed the wipers, the wiper cowl, the seal, and the wiper arms itself, as well as the mechanism. Cleaned it all up. The transmission I will be using is a P2A5 transmission, which comes from a 97 Accord. I got the transmission from Synchrotech out in California. So it has been rebuilt. It has carbon synchros. It has an M factory helical limited slip differential and a Prelude 4.26 final drive, which helps shortens the gearing just a tad bit, but you know, anything helps out. For me personally, the Prelude transmission is way too short for a daily driver. That is why I chose this transmission. And it has been said that 1/4 mile times, regardless of the transmission, remain the same. I haven't seen any facts to prove that, but regardless, I'm still going to use this transmission because it is a daily driver. It helps out on the highway. Now, when I purchased this transmission, the transmission comes bare, meaning you need the reverse light, you need the bracket for the clutch cables, you need the manual transmission bracket that connects to the mount, you need the flywheel dust cover, you need the shift release fork, you need a shift release fork boot, you need the slave cylinder, and then you also need the starter, as well as the vehicle speed sensor. Alright, so here's the Accord transmission on the left, and then on the right got the Prelude transmission. And so I put in the tire size, the rim size, and then it's at 7,500 RPMs is what it tops out at, well, the rev limiter. And so you guys can see where it tops out, and this is completely stock. And so this one would top out at 155. So imagine doing highway speeds. So on this one real quick, I'm gonna put in let's just say 3,000 RPMs. And so you're doing 3,000 RPMs at 62 miles an hour, which sucks, especially on the highway. Most of the time on the highway you're doing about 70, 75, well, at least here in Houston. And then so it'll probably be about, you know, you're probably doing about 3,700 RPMs. Yeah, about 3,700 RPMs. And that would be highway. And that's pretty high if you ask me. So let's go back to 7,500 RPMs. Now I'm going to change this one into the Accord. So that one would be the Accord stock, and this one I'm going to change to the 4.26 final drive. It's actually 4.266 to be exact. Okay, now you see how I dropped it a little bit from 193 to 183. You can see side by side. And now let's try to do highway speeds. 3,000 RPMs at 73 miles an hour. So probably be about 3,100. See, you're doing about 3,100, which this helps, especially with daily driving. It doesn't matter if it's city or highway, it's going to help. So I mean, this is just personal preference, but I'm just showing you guys what it is right here. And so there, put it back to the Prelude final drive. Like I said, I know it's kind of hard to see, but if you see the differences side by side, to me this is just way too short over here, especially for the highway. And I have noticed a big difference in gas mileage, to be honest, since I have installed this transmission. But what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to remove these 12mm bolts, the ones that connect the transmission to the bell housing. I'm going to replace them with the hardware from Downstar that I got from them. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do right now. See, looks real nice. Now next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put the reverse light on. There it is right there, and I also got the washer for it directly from Honda. Going to go ahead and install that now. Almost forgot, I gotta add this bracket onto it, onto the front side of the transmission. Went ahead and installed the bracket that you can see right there. Alright, next I'm going to install the bracket that goes right there to hold the shifter cables. And I got that bracket separately at the junkyard, so I just need to install it. It came without it.
Break away from those tears now. Break us lose who we are.
Alright, got the bracket installed. Take a look at the hardware. Got the other bracket. Reverse sensor. I still need to put on the starter, the shift fork boot, the VSS, and I still gotta put on the mount. But that's gonna be put on later once I got everything to go. You know, it's about to be put on the car. Got the Prelude here all jacked up pretty high. Already did some work on it just because I thought you know, I don't want to waste time in filming little things. Basically you have to take off the wheel, take off the center cap, put the wheel back down, and normally there'll be a nut right here. There would be an indentation right here on the center, on the bolt, and it would be right here along here in the shaft. And so you just have to take that indentation out, find a socket that fits onto it. I got a breaker bar and a pipe, a long pipe, to get these off because they are on pretty tight. And then you could go ahead and jack up the car and take off the wheels. The bolt right here for the steering rack, well, this one, that one up there, and the bottom bolt, they have cotter pins in them. And so I took off the cotter pin for this bolt right here, and I took off the cotter pin for the bottom one, and hopefully just taking those two off I could get the axles out. And then I also took off the bolt, well, the nut right here on the suspension fork, and as you can see here, here's the nut that fits onto there. Here's the nut for the ball joint for the steering rack. I know it has a specific name, I can't think of it right now. And then here's the castle nut for the lower suspension knuckle. And here's the cotter pins. You could reuse these. It's recommended that you use brand new ones. But I mean, you can reuse them. Also recommended that you get new nuts for the axle, but you can reuse them. I would recommend just put some Loctite on them and redo the indentation on them. Now for the driver's side and the suspension, I did the same thing. Like I said, notice the boot is torn. All the boots on the ball joint are pretty dry. Pretty sure they never been changed before. Like I said, I took off the nuts on these. But also what I noticed is on this brake caliper there's a bolt missing, and so I've been driving like that for, I guess, I've driven this car about 2,000 miles. So yeah, that's not safe. I'm gonna have to go ahead and put a bolt back in there. You will have to drain the transmission fluid before pulling axles out, or you'll spill fluid everywhere when you pull those axles out. You will also have to go ahead and take the suspension forks off to get the axles completely out. It was hard to get the driver's side axle out, so I went ahead and unbolted the mid shaft and just took out the mid shaft along with the driver's side axle and just separated them using a hammer. You will also want to take the bracket that goes across from the front traction bar to the subframe that houses the steering rack.